Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to the CCSQ DNA Town Hall. For those of you who are new, these calls are designed to provide you with updates, announcements, and training demos related to the CDR, SAS via Databricks, and more. Okay, so first, just to go over a few administrative reminders before we get started today. Please stay muted during our call to minimize interruptions. Please use the Zoom chat to ask any questions, and then those will be answered during our Q&A portion at the end of our call. So we'll be holding those questions until then. And then all meeting materials will be made available in our Confluence space after our event wraps up today. So now let's go over today's agenda. First, we'll be kicking things off with an educational session from Derek, focusing on SAS Workbench. Then we'll be reviewing our monthly satisfaction survey. And we're actually going to be dropping the survey link in the chat this time, but not actually administering it via Zoom surveys this time. Third, we're going to have Databricks assistant feedback. And then our next session is going to be some SAS via transition updates. And then finally, our last session today will be SAS via transition, some lessons learned from Jesse. And then finally, we'll be closing things out today with our Q&A session. As a reminder, any questions that were asked but not necessarily answered that we may have run out of time or need to gather some resources and get back to you, those will be made available in our published Q&A form after our town hall wrap. So we'll make sure to get all of those questions answered and then published so everyone can access them. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to Derek now to give you some more information about his session and his background.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, so we've had a lot of questions, rightfully so, regarding the SAS transition work into Databricks and talking about data on the SAS Workbench and how it's going to be accessible, or if it is accessible within Databricks. And, is there some kind of graphical user interface to that workbench like there is within SAS Studio? So we've posted a lot of answers within the portal around the SAS transition work and our frequently asked questions. And we've touched on this briefly in other demonstrations and specifically with some of our office hours. But we wanted to talk a little bit more about it visually to explain what all is happening behind the scenes so everyone kind of understands, what's happening, what is connected to what, and what it's going to look like moving forward. So with that, I can certainly share my screen quickly, and we can talk a little bit about what does, the connections look like, what are the different tools to be able to utilize, and things like that. So with that, I kind of put together this very high level diagram of what this S3 workbench, or what we've always referred to it as the SAS workbench, what it actually is, where it's located, and how it's being connected to across all of the different tools that are available to users. So certainly what everyone is probably used to and understanding is within SAS Studio, you've got all of these different quote unquote SAS workbenches where you store folders and files such as programs, SAS data sets, maybe some log files, HTML output results, Excel files, CSVs, whatever it might be. None of that is going away when SAS goes away. That is all available and will remain available through your group's Databricks compute cluster, as well as through what is now being referred to as the UFM, Unified File Management, which formerly used to be kind of a combination of the Managed File Transfer MFT tool, as well as FileCloud. So FileCloud went away, and sort of the concept of the FileCloud, where you've got team folders, as well as this sort of piece called network shares to be able to connect to your SAS workbench. All of that is now within the Unified File Management tool, as well as the MFT side of it, to be able to have the same exact direct connection to the Amazon Web Services S3 buckets that your groups are set up with. That is simply the exact same location on the back end that gets put onto the SaaS servers to be accessible in SaaS Studio. And again, it's the exact same backend location where your Databricks compute clusters are going to be able to have access to read files from, to write files to. All of this is basically say that once SaaS goes away, all of this is still there. Your programs, your files, folders, all of it is still there and manageable through the UFM tool as well as through the Databricks compute cluster. So I briefly want to walk through a demonstration to just talk about what it looks like. So the UFM tool, like every other application, you can log into it through your HARP role. And if you already had FileCloud set up, everything got migrated over into UFM. And if you already had this network shares connection through FileCloud, that also was rolled into UFM. If you did not previously have your network shares set up within FileCloud, you will need to submit a help desk ticket where we can then provide the ESS team your HARP role, HARP ID, and then the S3 path to the workbench locations, and they will set up the network shares for you. So again, here I'm in Unified File Management tool, and like my diagram here, there's a Teams folder, a network shares, and there's the MFT object. So MFT is under your mail. You can see I've got my team folders here, which is all based on the previous FileCloud stuff that got migrated over. And then there's actual network shares. And you can see here, I've got two network shares that go to a DA mod into this QDAS eSimplicity. We do not manage any of this stuff on the DNA team. This is all managed through the ESS contract and that ESS team itself. But again, we can see here, if I click into ViaProd DA mod, it's going to give me all of the folders and files that are directly linked on the back end to what you would normally see within your SaaS Studio File Explorer tab. So here's the DA mod, and you can see I've got admin testing, Anderson Dan archive, all that stuff located there, and that's it. It's the exact same thing that I'm seeing here. So if I want to go into my user folder, I can simply click into here, and maybe I want to go into demo. And like a lot of people are probably used to, perhaps, here's the demo folder. You are used to uploading files into your workbench, right? If they're large files, because SaaS Studio has a limitation, maybe in the past you used FileCloud to upload much larger files. That's what we're using UFM for now. And that is how you're going to be able to upload files, to be able, outside of SaaS, to be able to then use them on the Databricks side. So I wanted to demonstrate, a simple upload file. I can take this CSV file that I put together real quick. Obviously, it's the best National Football League team's roster. And so I can see it here, right? So now what I can do is go onto the actual side of SaaS Explorer, and I see it here, Packers roster.csv. And the same exact thing on the Databricks compute cluster, which I should have made sure that this was started, but that's fine. I'll come back to this. So now I can simply import this data, right? I got code here, simple data step where I'm importing the file. I want to take a look at the SaaS data set contents and observations, and then a quick example of whatever you might be able to do with that data itself. And now I can see it, right? So this is stuff that everyone's fully aware of, but what I want to talk about more specifically is it's all going to the exact same location. So it's available on the network share side, it's available on the SaaS Studio side, and it's available on the Databricks compute cluster side. So we can see here 90 observations, 8 variables. Here's the layout based on what I formatted it. Here's 25 observations. and then a simple means procedure where I'm looking at average age and the number of people by the position that they were put in there as. Again, how this is working is this is workspace, workbench, DA mod data. This is the root directory of what's being mounted to the SAS server from the S3 side. So a lot of you maybe don't know or not yet, but we've got this out here where it's S3 location macro that is available, and it's got a parameter file name equals, and you can simply put in the location and the name of the file. And if you go to run this, it's going to show you the mapping of how this maps back to the S3 side. So you can see here, I've got this root bucket here, and then it gets into my user folder demo, and then there's where the file is. So what I want to demonstrate here is not that. Fact that we've got the S3 path. We've got the SAS via path. And notice workspace, workbench, DA mod data. And then S3, this crazy thing, CDRP to QDAS, workbench, DA mod. And then it goes to Derek, demo, CSV. Derek, demo, CSV. The same thing on this side. If I wanted to see that's not what I wanted. Where this goes, I've got this SAS via, or I've got this via prod DA mod, which is what's happening within UFM shared networks. And so it's important to understand kind of how this stuff is linking up, where we now have this from the S3 side, which essentially equates to this on the SAS via side, which equates to this on the UFM side. I understand this is a little convoluted, complex, and confusing, but this, again, is not controlled by us. This is what is being set up on the ESS team, but all of these are going back to the exact same root location, which is ultimately an S3 bucket, which is this here. So on the Databricks side, still waiting for this to launch, but you can see here I'm putting in my S3 path. I'm going to create a quick mount of my S3 bucket onto the DBFS mount, which is just the Databricks file system, using the dbutils file system mount option. And then I'm going to be able to just show you all what is in that mount location. After that, I'm going to unmount. I'm not going to unmount yet. I'm going to unmount it later, and then I'll be able to import it into a Spark data frame rather than as a SAT data set. I can import as a Spark data frame, and you can see here, not doing anything that we haven't shown before, where we're creating the schema type. Since this is a CSV file, it's probably best to say what specific types you're wanting to apply to the different fields. And here's where I'm setting the schema equal to the structure setup here. I'm going to print the actual data frame schema and look at the top 25 observations, and then just kind of do the exact same thing here, where I aggregate the count and the average age by the position. Do not know why this is taking so long. But again, what I want to show is how it's hitting the exact same back end on the AWS S3 directory to access this file that was uploaded through UFM, which again is hitting the exact same backend S3. And you can even see I've got my SaaS Workbench Access demo program here that I've saved here that will show up on this side here. So if I run this, it's going to go ahead and mount and then display all of the files within my S3 bucket, where one of the files will be that Packers roster.csv. After that, it's going to import and apply the schema to the data frame, and then we'll calculate the average and count by the position. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time once you completely restart your compute cluster. It kind of has to think a little bit and load some files, but once it does that once, everything else will run very quickly and display exactly what I want to show. I guess I could, I don't know, do we want to save questions for last, Julia, or do you want me to answer some questions if there are any?
We have about 2 minutes, so until we need to move on. So that's up to you. If you see any there that you might be beneficial while you're in there,
Right. No
or if
worries.
you want me to just read you a couple, or we can save them for the end.
We'll save them for the end. That's fine.
I also see Dan has been answering
Yep.
a couple as
Awesome.
well.
Yeah, so you can see here, I've mounted my S3 location here. And again, if I was to choose a mount, if I was to choose this a little bit further back, it would show everything. But under my user folder, under demo, you can see here's all of the different files that I'm seeing here. That I'm also seeing here. And so the next one, like I said, simply importing, assigning the structure that I want. It's then printing the schema, which you can see of the data frame, which is right here. And then it's printing the top 25 observations, just like I did on the SaaS side. And then it calculates, of course I didn't, one quick second, DF. I'm not sure what this problem is. Diagnose the error. I'm just going to get rid of this first. Yeah, that's what I thought. There it goes. So sort it, and now I've got count and average age by position, just like I do on the SaaS side. Position, count, average age. So ultimately, hopefully, what we learned is nothing on your SaaS workbench is going away. It's all available and it's accessible through Databricks, through network shares. And the last thing I want to talk about very quickly is that, yes, it would be fantastic to be able to view the SaaS workbench within Databricks, much like we can view database tables within the catalog. This functionality is not available yet. But once we hit some prerequisites of where we need to go and get onto the Unity catalog piece of Databricks, that will be available. So you will not need to use UFM, have some kind of a user interface to view your folders and files on the S3 Workbench side. You will be able to use Databricks the Databricks user interface, view the folders and the files within your S3 Workbench. However, again, that's not available yet. It will be in the future after we get to that point. There's a few prerequisites we got to set up on the features before we can get to that point. With that, I will stop sharing and thank you for the time.
Thanks, Derek. Okay. We should be set now. I did see a lot of questions coming in the chat. I have been working to get those all copied over to make sure that we have record of them, and then any that have not been answered we'll work on getting through at the end or during our Q&A session if we have time, and if not, we'll circle back to them and publish those after our call. Okay, so next I'm going to be passing things over to Miriam for our monthly satisfaction survey review and poll.
Hello, everybody. My name is Miriam Ibarra, the product owner for user services and portal team. And we have decided to change up the survey results this section to try to shorten the amount of time and make sure that you're getting the most out of the town hall. We can go to the next slide. So we've heard your feedback. We want to make sure that you are getting the benefit of the town hall and getting sessions like what Derek just provided. So last month when we did the survey for town hall, we asked you to keep in mind as you were filling out the survey to evaluate it for both May and June. After reviewing those results, we were able to identify that from April to June, we had a 2% increase of the overall satisfaction with the performance and uptime of the environment. We have an 11% increase with the help desk support as a whole, and then a 7% decrease since April for the resources that are available through data and analytics, and we'll touch on that a little bit more in another slide. Go to the next one, please. We wanted to make sure that we're kicking it off with some positive feedback that we've received from you. So just a couple quotes up here that somebody that you have provided. Databricks is fantastic. The more I use it, the more I like it. I hope the training calls continue. This, I believe, is in relation to the office hours that we've been hosting. Those will continue, and I have more on that in another slide. And then a shout out to Dan and Derek on our team for their hands-on tutorials and assistance in answering questions. They've been great. So we're thrilled about that. The next slide is going to cover some of the higher voice suggestions and impact improvements that you all provided. So for the environment as a whole, you're wanting to see better resources for Databricks and migrating SAS code to Python. In addition to detailed portal documentation, this is an ongoing effort. We are regularly updating portal with new content every 2 weeks. So keep an eye out for new information being published. And we will continue that effort to make sure that we're getting you the resources that you need to help support through the transition effort. From help desk, the biggest call out was implementing voice calls instead of the back and forth conversations through the ticket, so that the issue can be resolved quicker. We have refined our standard operating procedure for help desk, so we will be implementing changes. We have begun implementing changes to help desk, so hopefully you start seeing changes relatively soon. And then for training material specifically, just as the first quote was covered, we are going to be providing regular updates every 2 weeks. We're trying to publish new content out there for you. In addition to that, as Derek mentioned, future work is planned and coming for being able to share data sets and notebooks in a centralized location to help facilitate with the transition as well. And we will also be expanding on the training hub for material that's specifically been requested. Next slide, please. So finally, as I mentioned in the last town hall and in this town hall, we do review the survey results. We discuss ways that we can take action in order to make your experience better. So we take that feedback, we review it, and we try to implement changes so that we can reduce the frustration that you have. the SAS, so a couple key things that we wanted to point out, the SAS VIA team has been working diligently to stabilize the environment, to reduce the outages and the downtime. So hopefully you're seeing that. They will continue working on this and making sure that it is a stable environment for you. As I mentioned with the help desk, we have coordinated with the 3 tiers of help desk to redefine our standard operating procedures, and we have started implementing changes on how tickets are handled. And with available resources, again, we are building out our knowledge base articles and training material in Portal. This includes shared notebooks that have been either presented at data camp or town halls, getting those published out to Portal so that you have access to it as well. And then the biggest feedback that we got was to continue the office hours. We fully intend on continuing those sessions. We will be expanding attendance for upcoming sessions. Previous topics that we are repeating, we have extended or increased the attendance to 50 participants, and the office hour material and recordings are published to Portal roughly a week and a half after the session is held. So if you were unable to attend a session, we have that content out there for you. And our next session, we're on a little break right now as we're trying to put new training material together for you. But our next session is going to be August 7th. So keep an eye out for the registration email. And then also after we finalize the topics, those will all get published to Portal under the events section. Next slide. So just, I can't stress it enough. Your feedback is very valuable to us. And we do take it seriously. Like I said, we do review it and we are taking action in areas that we can. So please continue to provide that to us so that we can continue to improve and make sure that we are providing you the best service that we can. And I think the link to the survey, as Julia mentioned, we're doing it a little bit different this time. So I think the link is going to be posted in the chat versus a pop-up like we've been doing.
Yep, so just some notes. Laura is going to be posting that survey link in the chat now. In addition, if after the fact you would like to take the survey, which we're encouraging you to wait until our call ends, but it's also in the Slack post I posted to promote today's town hall, and in the email we sent announcing town hall today as well. It will stay open until 5 p.m. today. So just some additional notes. This survey helps us to know how we can improve your experience within the CCSQ DNA environment and community. The results, as Miriam has mentioned, will be used to improve our tools, trainings, and offerings. The survey link should at this point be shared in our Zoom chat. We encourage you to take the survey as soon as our meeting ends. The survey will remain open until the end of our working day. Please submit a survey only if you are a user within our CCSQ DNA environment. And as a reminder, this survey will be anonymous because you're using the link, but by providing your contact information, it does allow us to follow up and provide support and answer any questions where needed. So just some notes on that as you are filling it out. So because of that, and because we are asking that you take it after our call, we are not going to give any time for that right now. But if you would like to open the link and bookmark it for later, we certainly would love that. And thank you for your feedback. So then I'm actually passing it back to Miriam, and she's going to give us some additional information on Databricks Assistant feedback.
Yes, if you could go to the next slide. So on June 17th, we announced the launch of the Data Assistance Pilot being available in Databricks. Last Wednesday, actually, we posted an announcement in Portal requesting your feedback around the assistant so that we can evaluate if it's bringing you value or not. It is another survey. It is a very short survey. Should take you less than 5 minutes to fill it out, but your input around the tool itself will help us determine what steps to take next with it and ensure that it is actually bringing you value through the SaaS transition. And I think that we're going to post, I can post the announcement from Portal in the chat as well so that you can access the survey.
Laura just posted that as well.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so next we are going to be passing things over to Justina for some SAS via transition updates.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for spending the time with us today. Next slide, please. To reinforce, I want to just reiterate that regularly updated resources are available in our portal. As soon as the information is available, we try to post the updates on a weekly basis, whether it's the FAQs or the office hour recordings or other information. We will continue with the tailored support. I'm not going to spend time on it since Miriam has covered it. And also the use case support and the office hours. So we encourage everyone to please schedule them if you haven't done so already. We have gotten very positive feedback about the office hours. The satisfaction is at 4.2 points out of 5 so far. So we're excited to continue with it. Next slide, please. So where are we today? As of right now, we have gotten 39 Quality Net Analytics organizations who have completed their transition who have their ongoing transition or are determining whether transition is going to be necessary. We have 55 organizations who have completed the transition or notified us that there is no transition needed for them because their contracts were expiring. We have 17 Quality Net organizations that have not started the process. A small number of those organizations have their contracts expiring within the next 2 months. So we are not stopping to try to communicate with those organizations and to obtain the information. So if you hear from us, please kindly respond to our asks. On the other hand, if you have an update on your progress of the transition, please send us an email so we can update your record as well. Next slide, please. You will notice that this slide is about the IKES organization. So we have 2 different groups for analytics, if you will. There is a plan for the IKES organizations that we are working closely with the IKES team on. So we see it as 2 distinct areas. Specifically, the Max Recs and ADOs is our one area, and then the state users community is our other area. So we are working diligently to ensure that all of the new data sets needed are going to exist in CDR and be accessible by Databricks by October. We are phasing the availability of that data, so more to come on this. The IKES team is going to assist us with the onboarding for those users to have access to that data. What I'm going to say next is only specific to Max and Recs, and that is a contractor is converting the SAS code for you. You will not have to do the conversion yourself. When the code is converted and ready for, the outcome of the conversion is ready for you to utilize, we will be sending out announcements. The IKES team is going to provide a targeted training for your user community. For ADOs only on that side of the house, if you will, you're welcome to sign up for use case meetings so that we can capture any and all support you may be needing moving forward. State users only, the IKES team is actively investigating what the suitable solution for state users is going to be. We have recently sent out a state-specific survey, and that survey is going to close out by the end of this week. So we're asking to please respond to it. That is definitely going to help us out with the plan. And a detailed plan will be shared in the last quarter of calendar year 2024. And I think this may be my last slide. And I am super excited for our next speaker. So thank you very much again.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hi. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm going to assume that are we good?
Yes, you
Okay.
sound good.
Thanks. I underestimated how much like public speaking this was going to feel. I'm going to try not to go super fast because that's what happens when I get nervous. I don't think that, wait a minute. Uh-oh. So I need to share my screen and it says I can't start screen share while someone else is sharing.
Did you want to go over your agenda first, or did you want to
Oh,
just
yeah.
dive in? It's up to you.
Oh, I was just going to pull it up, but yeah, yeah, I can sort of just do the introduction. Okay, so my name is Jesse. I work at Alliant, which is a QIO that contracts, with CMS. We primarily only use SAS. Me in particular, I learned some R in grad school, but I haven't used it since, and I have been extremely resistant to learning other coding languages because it's taken about a decade for me to build my SAS skills to the level that they're at now. And, the way we have it, our SAS allows us to basically fully automate our massive complex code bases. So when we first learned that we were going to have to transition to Python fully by the next year, I was pretty freaked out because it didn't seem possible in the time given, not without losing most or all of the advanced functionality that we've been able to enjoy with SAS. And I'm not a programming prodigy. I don't do it in my spare time for fun. And I really hate the beginning of any learning curve when it's flat, because that's the not fun part. So I kind of drag my feet when I have to get into that kind of a task. So, I wasn't eager to learn Python or anything, just for context. And so that was the concern, was losing the ability to kind of automate our code at the same level. And can I share my screen yet? I did want to actually start sharing while I talk about this. Just to get a sense from the people in the room, do any of you use macros, or at least have kind of a working familiarity with macro language? If we get some yeses or nos in there, just to sort of get an idea of the proportion as I start talking about SAS and macro language and stuff, that might be kind of helpful.
So in the chat, we're seeing primarily yeses.
Most people use macros. Great. Okay. Then you're probably in the same boat as me about being apprehensive about switching to Databricks, because it was how do we do this without macros, right? So this is the way my old code was structured, where I use a main caller to update all of the parameters that change on a month-to-month basis. And I use a series of switches that either call codes, these are codes, or they sort of add built-in flexibility further down. So if I only want to pull one measure, I can set just hypertension or diabetes or something, right? And so for an example of kind of how the code used to look, I heavily use loops and arrays, and yeah, so looking at all of this, how we're going to get that in Python, it was I had no idea. So we were a little bit concerned as well at the very beginning, but I kind of just started taking it one step at a time, figuring out how to kind of do the basic steps. And as those started building, we finished the transition, and it just sort of happened. And now I'm pretty confident in Python. What I was going to do, and we had over 100,000 lines of code to convert to. It was not a small process. It was huge. But now that we're at the other end of it, the entire process, now that I'm looking back, can kind of be stripped down and simplified to really a handful of repeating building blocks within an analogous structure to the one that I was using before in SAS. So that's basically what I'm going to do here, is just share how I hacked that process and break it down into its smallest components. So to start with, what I did was create a dummy data set to sort of use as an example here. And basically, instead of real Benny IDs, just 1 through 5 repeating, and I threw in a bunch of random HigPix code. So that's the data set. And oh no, this little bar is in that way. Okay, here we go. So this is kind of the outline we're going to sort of go through. The first part is kind of building the caller structure within Databricks. The first thing you do is you make your notebook, which is I have here. You set your globals, which are dates, measurement periods, HigPix codes lists, state lists, things like that you're going to be using throughout the entire code base. Add your switches in as you build the code. So in Databricks, you use false and true instead of ones and zeros like I would in SAS. And when you actually run it, down here, you can call other notebooks just like this with this little run, and then you just put the link to the notebook and it runs it. It's actually easier to set up than it was in SAS to call other codes. The one caveat is you can't put multiple of these in one cell. you can put them in their own cell and then run all, it'll just run through them. So you can run as many cells as you want, just don't put them in the same cell. And so here's an example of like setting, your globals, right? I always put some sort of like month, year, some kind of measurement period indicator in the data set name itself so that I don't overwrite past data sets. And then, so here's some of the basic switches that I just threw in for this example. So that's it. We're already through half of it. That's how you build your caller shell right there. When you're writing the code components that the caller calls, I'm gonna get into some examples in a minute, but the first huge tip is convert everything that you can into SQL. Sorts, retains, lags, and other simple data sets are less efficient, but I was able to figure out ways to accomplish them in SQL, and SQL is something that I am comfortable with using more so than Python. So it was a pretty easy transition to just, try to keep it in SQL. The next step was, building up using SQL functions in Python Databricks, which is like analogous to a SAS macro. How to use for loops, which in this case use matrices instead of the double ampersands that we use in SAS. And then next, the next level of complexity was using for loops and matrices, or creating loops with matrices, but then using the switches as well from the caller. And then the last thing was just going to go over like what to do when SQL is not an option, because obviously there are some functions that you just can't do in SQL, like transforming long data to wide or stuff like that. So what I did with that was use ChatGPT, which I've never asked ChatGPT a question in my life before I had to start learning Python, and it blew my mind like how useful of a tool it is. So I heavily recommend using AI as soon as you get stuck with anything, because it's super helpful. And I was going to go through a few examples of that, like kind of when SQL fails. So for the example, now that we have the caller built, I have my globals kind of same in here as I would in the caller, because I'm going to be doing this example within this notebook and not from the caller. So the first step is to just set those and run them. So everything that I'm going to be throwing into my data I have in here, my switches, right now the full run is set to true and everything else is false. So I'll get into that in a minute. So the HICPIC codes that I want are in here. And then this is sort of how you create your function. And it's sort of similar to a macro where it takes a second to run and all it's doing is storing it. It's not actually doing anything. So this was just sort of a formatting organization choice of my own. Like I've been annotating it this way. When you set your function, I put the name of the data set it's creating here because you don't actually see it when you're using it. It's not necessary. You'll need that further down. This is the name of the function, sort of like the long form. You can kind of create names any way you want. This is just the way I've done it. And then this is like the short form of the same function, which anything you do in SQL, this part's exactly the same as it would be in SAS. This part around it, sorry, the part between the quotes here, that's the only thing that you need to convert for Python, and it follows that same pattern over and over again. So when you call it, in this function right now, I'm just pulling hypertension. And also too, sorry, real quick with the way functions operate. So if you're going to call like a global parameter or any kind of variable you create in the process, or even a data set that you save as a Spark table or something instead of to your library, you need to put it in the function for it to know what you're calling. And then when you're putting it in here, all you do is put it in brackets. So it's basically analogous to a macro with the ampersand and a dot around it, but here you use brackets and you stick them inside the function. So when I want to call this function, which is basically just pulling the hypertension diagnoses, the bennies with hypertension diagnoses from that fake data that I made, this is how you set it up. Again, kind of repeats the same every time. That annotated part I copy down here for when I'm calling the function, so that basically it's just a find and replace every time I save a table. I change the names. I put the function here, and then the little function replaces all those spots. And that's the pattern for how to create a data set with Python in Databricks in a really similar way to how you would in SAS. And taking a second. All right, there it is. It pulled just the hypertension diagnosis. So now I want to pull all three. So now I'm going to do a loop. And so here it's kind of the same thing, but I've created some extra variables, which are going to vary for the three different data sets that I want to create for each measure, right? So and these are new ones. They're not in my globals because it's, specific to this task. That's where the matrix comes in that you loop through. I'm going to just run it real quick because it's going to be easier to read when it's, in table form than like that. But basically, there's a row for each measure now. So This format's kind of the same. Let's see. I think right now, yeah, it's just the matrix of the diagnosis code. So yeah, here's the name of the diagnosis, and then the HCPCS codes attached to each one. You kind of have to get familiar with like the syntax and the formatting, but again, like once you kind of get the hang of that, it repeats itself, so it's not too hard to pick up. But what the loop does is for each row, it's going to read through these two variables and then put them into that data set. So this is the setup for telling it to read the matrix. This is an example of kind of using that switch from the beginning. So if it's set to full run, like if that's true and not false, then it'll execute this part of the code. And then for each row in that data frame up there, it says pull the diagnosis in the code list that's specific to that row, and then you insert it into your function. And then when you run it, we end up getting 3 data sets now for each measure. So that's kind of a basic loop and how that works. It goes really fast, but faster than SAS, for sure. Just gonna give it 1 second before I move on to the next example here. So there we go. There's diabetes, there's hypertension, and there's advanced illness. And that's more efficient than, doing that 3 times for each one, right? Especially when you have maybe like 16 or 20 or however many you might have to go through in your real code. This is an example now of how to, what is this? This is resources. That's not that one. Okay, so this is the second example. This one's going to be basically doing the same thing, but I'm going to be calling it from the caller, and I'm also going to incorporate switches. So I still do the global setup, even though there's no point putting your variables here if you're calling from the caller. And actually, I'd recommend not doing that, because if you forget to remove them again, you'll when it does call it from the caller, it's going to use like last month's variables if you left them in there or something. So I try to only keep the parameters in the caller and only edit them there to keep things accurate. Functions set up exactly the same way. Your data frame is at first in this part the same. If you want to add switches in, then you have to kind of create this filtered data frame where basically it's saying, if the diabetes switch is on, then diab and all the things in the diabetes row, same hypertension, advanced illness, and then full run is the option if you want to do all of them. So that's kind of the format for how you set up a filtered data frame. And everything else is exactly the same, except instead of DF, everything is filtered DF. So that's the structure. And then if I go out here and I want to run it, I run my globals. And the way I have it set up now is I don't run it to do the full run. I want it to pull just diabetes and hypertension, but not advanced illness. So when I click this, everything runs now from the caller, just as it would as if you were doing it in that notebook that you created the code in. So this is the matrix. It's producing diabetes right now. And then there's hypertension and not advanced illness. So that's sort of like a little extra layer of complexity if you want to build in that flexibility, which I like to do. And then the last example I wanted to get to was some kind of more tricky ones that I use ChatGPT for. So let's see. I hope I'm not going like too fast. I speak quickly when I'm nervous. Sorry, guys.
And Jesse, just a quick heads up, we do have like 5 to 7-ish more minutes.
Good. All right.
Yeah, you
all
have
right,
a little time.
I'll just run it real quick. Okay, so let's see. Let me get back at the top. All right, so run the globals. Find the function. Oh, I don't know where I'm ChatGPT. Sorry, I forgot where I was. All right, so in this example, basically what I'm doing here is a pivot table. So I'm taking the long to wide format and basically doing that within Python. I had absolutely no idea how to do that before I started trying to figure it out. And the way I did that was with ChatGPT. And so a kind of an example of how you can use it, like, you kind of can give it dummy data and like tell it what you want it to do and like talk to it like a person. And then it will literally spit out code for you to use. And it's not always right. It gives wrong answers like really confidently. So like, what if I want the number of HCPCS columns to be dynamic or something? If it's going to, if there's like a varying number of HCPCS columns or something to make wide, then it changes the code, tells you how to fix it. And you can kind of troubleshoot with it that way. And it'll do whatever you say. So like, can you show me what the data I gave you would look like with the code that you just provided up here? So it goes through it and then shows, the code here. So that's basically kind of how, how I hacked the process, trying to figure out where I am right now here. So yeah, I guess I don't know if these examples are so useful because it's, it's just a matter of kind of getting in there and messing with it and figuring it out. And the AI is so much more useful than regular Google would be because you kind of have to, piecemeal it together on your own. Like it takes all that guesswork out, just gives you exactly what you need. So like this one, it got even more complicated because what I wanted to do was read through the columns and then create a flag for if that HickPix code was present. And obviously you can't do that in SQL. You can do it in Python. It is tricky coding, but all of it came from the help of AI, not from my own genius. So use AI. It is super helpful. And I guess that's about it. I'm just going to try to wrap it up then. In conclusion, what's ended up happening now, like this is our real code caller that we use, and these are all the codes that I call. These are all of my like dates and parameters and switches and stuff that I have in here. It's pretty intense, but like I can click this button and it'll run the entire thing, like this entire massive code base, which would have taken a week in SAS. It'll do it in a day. And it'll do it all at once. SAS was way less efficient in that I'd have to actually run each of these individually. And also we had to manually prep the data and import it and then download it and then prep it to export it. And it was just a big pain in the butt. And I've built in the importing and exporting within the functions themselves now. So like it's pretty much taken out all the human element and it's way faster and more efficient and in a lot of ways more simple. So I was really impressed with like Python and Databricks and how easy it was to use with all the resources and then how much easier it makes our job at the other end of it. So it is worth doing the transition. And like the real secret is just break it down into the building blocks that you need and just keep using them, and you'll pick it up as you go. So, okay. I think that's about where I can't figure out how to get back to the chat. And I'm sorry, I'm not used to Zoom, guys. Okay. I think if I stop sharing?
Over to sharing again. So
I apologize. Let me jump in here real quick. So first of all,
that's okay. Go ahead.
Jesse, thank you so much that was just such a great journey that I don't even know what to say. I'm almost crying a little bit here listening to the success of what you did. So
I hope it helps people. I mean,
I think this is needed, right? There's a lot of trepidation in the community about the transition and about where we're going and stuff. So, stories like this are immensely helpful.
We're getting a lot of great feedback too in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. One other thing I forgot, guys. I did create like a little kind of resources version of everything I just went through that kind of makes it generic, like kind of like a template and a little bit more annotated explanation. So that's available as a resource as well. That's, not specific to this example if people want to use it.
Perfect. I do want to put one word of, awareness concern to the community. Whereas I will say I love GPT, right? ChatGPT and services such as that. It's a great resource. It's a great thing for learning. You can even put in sample information and get code and everything out of it. And I encourage that usage. Please be aware, do not use any of our production data in that environment. It is not permitted for it to go out there, even in small subsets, things like that. So just be cautious, right? Use sample tables, sample data, that doesn't matter. But even data that doesn't have PII or PHI is not to be shared on public forums, right? Or else it would be a public use file. I just want to put that out there because how easy it can be to add that content to GPT and have it do things and stuff. It would be frowned upon in this community. So please be very cautious about how the data is being shared out there. On a better note, we do plan to pilot generative capabilities in-house, right? So that is something that we are working towards and going to hopefully be able to offer to the community so the data can all stay within our security boundaries and whatnot. But I loved your example. It was great use of all the necessary tools at hand. But I felt I needed to interject that word of cautiousness to the community.
Yes, I meant to say something about that. Definitely be careful with PHI and anything about your cluster and stuff. Like just, don't give it information that it doesn't need. And shoot, there were some other little things I meant to say and I forgot what they were. I'm sorry.
All good. Thank you so much again. I can't be any more sincere. It was great hearing your story.
Oh, sorry. One other thing too. Yeah, the way that I did it, saving tables and stuff, like that was just my preference. But there's other there's differences between Spark and Pandas tables that you need to learn, and issues with indents and formatting and date formatting, especially within SQL, kind of changes. It's a little bit different. Like there's a bunch of stuff like that you kind of need to pay attention to, but like as you start playing with it, it becomes more clear, and you can kind of develop your own organization formatting approaches that work for you. But that was my approach, was just to save everything into the library and keep it as heavily in SQL as I could, just so I can kind of plow through and get all the code converted.
All right. Thank you so much, Jesse. We got a ton of good feedback. I know people had been asking for information and if material to be available because they want to review Jesse's content again or share it. So just a reminder that today's meeting materials, including the recording, slides, and then we also have resource links that have been shared in the chat from Jesse. Those and some other, the feedback and things that we had been placing in the chat are all there as well. We also made note of them under that question in our Q&A, so that'll be published there as well. Unfortunately, we are out of time, so we did not get, I think we only have about 3 to 5 unanswered questions, so we'll be sure to pass those along to the team. They'll publish those, and then keep an eye out on our Confluence space for as our materials become available as they're passed on. And then upcoming events, we have a maintenance event August 2nd, and our next town hall will be August 28th. So we look forward to seeing you guys then. And if you have any questions or issues in the meantime, please reach out to us via email or Slack. Thank you so much for joining us. Just checking our chat one more time. It looks like at this point, I have all of the questions copied over, so we should be good. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.